Hello, everyone. Let me spotlight. Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Let's see here. Let me just put this over here. I hope you all had a lovely weekend. So thank you so much for hopping in today. Couple things that I definitely want to say off the top. And then I actually put together a little class today on tissue culture because on Saturday we stopped over one of our new favorite plant shops, NYC Succulents, and they're selling tissue culture plants, but they're rare plants. So this is a snowdrift philodendron. This has been on my wish list for a while. Uh, it's just nuts to even say that I have one of these, and tissue culture can make these types of things much more accessible. So I'm gonna talk a little bit more about what is this and why is it in a tube and what in the world is this? And yeah, so I'm gonna talk about that. But I did want to show you a couple fun things. I am completely sore on Friday. I did some volunteering at um, Inwood Hill Park, and I very much underestimated the hill aspect of the park. Um, and we were getting rid of a bunch of gout weed, which is also known as ground elder. So I wanted to show you what that looks like in case it might look familiar to you. Here we go. Yeah, gout weed. Here we go. Um, so it wasn't in flower. So it wasn't in flower as of yet, but if you look at the flowers, they do look very similar to elderflower. It also looks, yeah, it looks very similar, right, to elderflower. Um, and you might recognize it horticulturally. It's purposely planted as an ornamental, but it's usually this variegated variety. So where the edges have that white detail to them. Um, well, unfortunately, these spread very, very quickly. They spread via like rhizomes. So they create these kind of intricate like mats essentially of goutweed. They can very quickly just cover an entire area, and this ends up taking up most of the real estate and covering other natives that are actually trying to survive. And these, they don't even need full sun. So we were in the like inner forest, and this was spreading like crazy. And my only times that I've ever like the only times I've ever come into contact with it and had to pull goutweed is at one of the community centers, community gardens that I volunteer at in the Lower East Side. Somebody had planted some goutweed and it got out of hand and it took over a whole section. So they were asking us to pull as much as we could, and then they ended up putting a like black sheet plastic over it to try to kind of snuff it out because you know it was just getting too extensive, and they really couldn't keep up with how quick it was growing. Um, so I always thought that they needed much more sun. So to see them in the interior of the forest like that was very surprising. And especially, I just didn't expect, so I knew we were going to the forest to do some trail work and some invasive species removal, but I did not know what species. So when I got there and they're like, all right, today's mission is goutweed. it caught me so off guard because again, goutweed is something I think of, well, it's in the carrot family. So I think, um, yeah, this is maybe an issue for like gardeners and things, um, but no, I never expected to find this in the woods. Um, so that was very surprising for me. But oh gosh, it was just a lot of being down in the dirt, which is great. I love that, but definitely being in like that crouching position and yeah, my back is still feeling my back is still feeling it. Um, but one interesting thing too is while we were removing the goutweed, I noticed that the soil, um, it was very much covered in worm castings. So this is worm poop. So I'll show you what that looks like. So when, let me see, it has a very distinct, here we go. So it's very noticeable, right? It doesn't just look like um, soil. It's like these little bumps. And I was like, I mean, of course you see worm castings here and there sometimes, but it was all over. Um, and I was like, wait, hold on, are there jumping worms here? And I asked the team lead, and they're like, yeah, actually there is. And all this frass, which is another way of saying basically poop or worm castings. Um, they're like, yeah, this is all them. And so I did not realize either that the jumping worms were already in Manhattan. So I have seen jumping worms all over Queens parks, even out in Long Island, on my friend's property, out up like more upstate from us. Also, I discovered some jumping worms there, but I did not realize that they were already in Manhattan as well. So if you're not familiar with jumping worms, they look like earthworms, but they're much thicker, they're much more robust. They move more like snakes than a worm. When you pick up a worm, it's like flimsy, right? You think flimsy, it's kind of slow. No, these things like whip back and forth and they move. They just move right over the surface of the soil and leaf litter like it's a millipede or something. Like it doesn't move the same way. It's very disconcerting when you see them. And they were big. They were so huge. Um, and as every time I was like pulling out goutweed, I would see more of them. And we were kind of, because of all the vibrations, it was causing them to kind of come up. And there were so many. Um, and so these were introduced uh, via like different types of like shipments and things like that. And uh, it's very astonishing um, because they just I've never seen that many. Like I've seen a couple here, a couple there. If we're digging out like a pit to put a tree or something, and I've seen like one or two, uh, but never to the capacity that we saw. It was nuts, but they look like regular earthworms. But they just move. They move so different. Um, it was very yeah. And again, it's not that they're creepy or anything. It was just the way that they moved. It's just like your brain says that's not how that's supposed to work. And so it's scary to see how many are in the parks. And so why is this bad? Right? So you're probably saying, well, they're worms. Like, don't we want worms? Like, why are worms bad? So what these do though is another thing I noticed is where all this worm castings were, there was no leaf litter. It was just like soil, and you're in the interior of a forest. So when you're in the interior of a forest, you're expecting to see layers of different types of leaf litter, right? So it might be this last fall's leaf litter. It you're expecting to see a lot of that debris on the floor, and it was pretty like clean in some spots. It was just dirt. And you don't want that. So what's happening is that they're basically eating all of the leaf litter before it can break down and fertilize the trees. So it's kind of intercepting that cycle that the trees have with the leaf litter, kind of rejuvenating the soil, feeding the tree, unlocking some of those nutrients for the tree to take up again. And now they get basically processed and trapped in the worm castings. Um, and a lot of that nutrition is gone now, used up by the worm. And while worm castings, yes, you can use them to fertilize, they are very nitrogen rich. It's just not the same as if the leaf litter was just allowed to break down in the forest. So it's very different for, with our house plants, very different system at work. And it's also taking food away from other decomposers, so isopods, millipedes, springtails. So it's disrupting the food chain essentially. Um, but yeah, I just wanted to share that because I was like, has anyone here seen jumping worms, or do you have them on your property? Because oh my gosh. Um, oh yeah. Yes, yes. Yeah, so they must have had their spinach. Yeah. Is that adaptation to the rhizomes from the weed? Um, so yeah, so well that's how they grow. So they're just that's how they spread. So when you pull one out, we had to use trowels. So we had to dig in and then get to the base and start to pull, and you'd end up pulling like three different plants. Um, and so that's just an example of asexual reproduction. So they're capable of doing that. And that's what has the makings of an invasive species. So something that has no predators here, like in the new place. Because what was funny was there was actually some forestry folks that are not from the United States. And it was really funny. We were all talking about how ironic it was that, they were helping us remove a bunch of this goutweed, right? And then we were all telling stories about invasive species, and then they were saying that in Europe they're getting upset. They're like, yeah, when I'm in Europe, I've had to deal a lot with goldenrod. And you think of goldenrod, and here, goldenrod, people want you to plant goldenrod. It's a native. Um, you want that for your pollinators because they start to bloom around September in the Northeast. Uh, it's something that we want to plant because it's a native, and to think, well, in Europe they're complaining about American like North American plants that have been introduced to Europe spreading, and that's their invasives. It was very funny. We were all making note of that. But yeah, it's a plant that's growing in a place it shouldn't be growing. So there's no competition. There's no predation. So there's nothing to keep it in check because the animals, they don't recognize it as a food source yet. And I'm saying yet because in some times they can, but it takes a really long time. So for example, Phragmites. So it's like this really tall marsh grass. It has like the pom pom, and it grows around ponds, and it's like suffocating the ponds. Um, that was introduced several hundred years ago. Um, and it took about 100 years in the estimations for it to be recognized by, and I don't remember the specific species of caterpillar, but it took like 100 years before something started eating it. So sometimes it will kind of follow that trajectory. It kind of becomes what is called naturalized. So certain introduced plants that are naturalized that aren't necessarily invasive. Now, they could be invasive in some states, but in other states, it's pretty controlled. It's not affecting the ecosystem. So things like plantain, staghorn plantain, um, the um, dandelion, plantain. Um, those are pretty naturalized at this point. So even though they're introduced, they aren't wreaking havoc. But then there's other things that come, and it's just too much. The volume is too much. So if you see like a dandelion, I mean, maybe somebody might get very unlucky, and then their whole lawn becomes covered in dandelions. But for the most part, um, you're it's like here over here. They're spaced out. Oh, thanks, babe. Brian just brought me my caffeine. Um, but yeah, so they're kind of spaced out. It's not taking up a lot of space. But something like mugwort, for instance, that also has spreads with these rhizomes. Um, so that's what ends up happening, is that they kind of take up a whole section and they cluster very close together. They grow very tall. So it's doing a lot. It's taking up a lot of the ground, but then it grows very tall, which means it's now shading. It's creating shade, and it's choking out anything that was trying to grow there. So there's like degrees of how a plant can end up becoming invasive. And so right, plants that do grow with that kind of like a rhizome, um, that can end up, they tend to be much more troublesome plants to deal with, because again, you're trying to it's like a network. So you're trying to pull them out, and if it breaks, you're leaving pieces behind. And those rhizomes have the ability, so it's called the whole this ability to kind of create that, a new plant from pieces. It's called totipotency, and so they have that totipotency to become, um, another plant. So if you didn't get it all, it's going to continue. So it's very frustrating, and it's a lot of work for people. So it's understandable why some people go, forget it, just forget it, and they'll just mow it, but they don't remove it, or they just go whatever. And that's unfortunate, because then this stuff starts to continue to spread. Um, Oh, Holly's asking, do you think that the worms that follow the plant may have learned to jump the rhizomes? Um, well, no, I mean they're not very thick, so they're very thin rhizomes. It's very similar to like spearmint or mint plants. They spread like that. That's another troublesome thing, is when mints, if you plant like spearmint or even peppermint in your yard, it will become a problem. So I really recommend, if you're going to grow plants like that, like mint or spearmint, they can get very aggressive. So better to stick to a container, and probably only put one type of mint in a container. So you can put other mints, like let's say lavender, oregano, thyme. You can put those, and even rosemary. You can put them together. They actually will grow okay together in a planting box if that's what you wanted to do. But just avoid putting like peppermint or spearmint in there, because the spearmint will just take over. It'll kill everything else, and you'll just have a box of spearmint. So it's just better to, just if you're gonna do spearmint, just stick to spearmint in one box. Give it its own box, because it's, yeah. Uh, but yeah, it's really difficult. And yeah, I think that the worms were just, they were being very attracted to the vibrations. And so as we were digging out the roots, I think that would kind of like attract them. So as soon as we were pulling the roots out, all of a sudden they would be coming out. But I seriously have never seen so many. And even just like worms, like in general, like earthworms in general, while working in the forest, to that capacity. I'm talking, there were hundreds of worms. Like, I'm not even like, I'm not exaggerating. Like they were literally everywhere. As we pulled, like there would be like three here, and then they would start crawling, and then over here, and then people were like, "Oh, whoa, whoa! We got so many worms." And like somebody pulled this really big one, and she's like, "Oh my God, it's so big. I can see its mouth." Like it was such an odd experience. So I was like, I need to share this because it was so weird. It was so weird. But yeah, it's very it was just very disconcerting because it's like this is bad and I don't really know what we could really effectively do to bring down those numbers. Brenda is saying, isn't it still hard on the entire environment of 100 years? Yes, displacing natives, killing off insect populations for just one caterpillar to adapt to a foreign plant. Oh yeah, oh absolutely. It's not an argument to have invasive. Definitely not. It was just an example that sometimes some invasives over time can end up becoming naturalized, but it's not worth it. It's absolutely not worth it. Those 100 years, absolutely, you lose things that were growing in that region that will not grow anywhere else, and they're lost. They are lost. They are completely lost. Um, and that affects so many things. So I don't think folks understand. Like I'm getting a lot of pushback, even if anyone here knows about the spotted lantern flies, right? There are folks where because we have to kill them. Like if you see them, you're supposed to kill them. And Brian and I have killed them. And I've had people going, well, why are you killing them? I'm like, well, because it's an invasive and it's doing damage to our local trees. It's like pretty bad and it's affecting people's like the grapevines. Like you just don't want it here. Um, and you know people were pretty upset about killing it, and then online people were even saying like in the forums, people were like, oh, but why kill them, and just they're not that bad. Oh, it's not gonna it's not an invasion, like they're not doing anything. They only bother cash crops. It's fine if it's in the city. And that's not the attitude. So and they were like, yeah, the animals will eat them. And that's not, a lot of the plants that they feed on make them very bitter. And so therefore they're not edible, like, and, birds don't recognize them. Now, there are Chinese praying mantises that were introduced that are a problem in our environment because they can't eat even small birds. Um, Now they're eating the lanternflies because that is one of their natural predators. But I mean, it's a very slow. That's a very slow process. Um, so gosh, yeah, but no, it's not worth it. It's not worth purposely planting an invasive and then thinking, oh yeah, eventually it'll mesh eventually. No, absolutely not. Um, yeah, it's not worth it. All of the damage that it does in the time until it's recognized um, as a food source, it is insurmountable. It's devastating. So yeah, no, it's very, very hard on the environment. Yes, trumpet vine, yeah, yeah, that's it spreads like crazy. Um, and they were putting up these rings around the trees, and so they feed on Ailanthus altissima, which is tree of heaven, which is another invasive. So it's a non-native tree that was introduced and spread pretty relatively quickly. Um, and you're seeing that this is a sycamore. Hold on, if I can get here we go. Whoops, it, there we go. So this is a sycamore. This is not an ailanthus, and we actually had to put um, the there was these rings that were on cherries, ginkgos, sycamores, lindens. So these rings were on a lot of other trees that were not ailanthus. that were getting covered in these lantern flies. And so these rings that were being put into place, they have like a pheromone, and it attracts the lanternflies. Now, unfortunately, there were also other things that were caught in there, flies, some wasps and things, some bees. Um, so I wish that there was like another option. I personally, I feel like charging up my hands-free vacuum and just going outside and vacuuming a bunch of them, because there's so many. In our yard, we have an ailanthus. We have a tree of heaven. And when I go into the yard, I keep seeing them flying. I try to catch what I can to kill. And it feels really bad to kill because I really like insects and I don't want to kill them. It's really like a it's like a catch 22. You don't know what to do. But yeah, I feel like I might just do that. I might just bring out my vacuum. Um, so Suzanne says my father rigged two rods with wire to put current through the soil so we could catch night crawlers. That is awesome. I was actually thinking that when we saw so many, I was telling Brian, I was like, maybe, if the parks department were to try to reach out to like fishermen and say, hey, for folks, there's great if you like if we were to like collect them and then give them to folks to use as bait or something like to bring down these numbers, like I don't know, there were just so many, but yeah, so I just wanted to share that experience from Friday because that was nuts. And then the last things was just some books, well, one of which, this one is really cool, and I'm gonna highlight a couple of these, and I'll share it on like the Facebook page, and I'm gonna put some of these up on Instagram too. And so I really love old recipes, and I found this compilation of recipes from 1770 to 1870. But what I love is it's not just food, it's just a bunch of things. So there's like condiments and things to like make your something to shine your own shoes, and um it's very, very cool. I'm actually really, really excited to explore these. Even trail food, making dyes for different what's it called, to boil your garments to change colors, and furniture polish, how to make your own furniture polish, tanning furs, walnut stains, making soap. uh yeah, there's some really cool recipes, and I'm excited to highlight a couple. So I want to make kind of like a big, like a compilation of different recipes. But so that was a really cool find. Um, but this one, so happy plants, happy you. So I had the fortune of meeting Camille back in July at an NYBG event, and she's awesome. She's really, really awesome, and uh, I did not even realize that her book was coming out. So I went to um, her book signing on Saturday at the New York Botanical Garden, and so I haven't started reading it yet. I did peruse through it, and it looks absolutely amazing. I mean, oh, it's absolutely, absolutely amazing. And so I'm very excited. So I'm going to do a book review. So I will let you know my thoughts. But I'm definitely excited. So it's not only about plant, just the plants themselves, because she does do whole things on just the plant themselves, um, but she's also talking about her own journey, and how plants, have become part of her life. So I'm excited to read this, and I will be doing a review on it. So just keep an eye out on that. So I was super excited for her. I was like, I did not know you were coming out with a book. So it was really cool to see. All right. So I wanted to introduce you all to tissue culture. So I put together a very short presentation. So first off, I have not done tissue culture myself. So I have just gotten I've gotten tissue cultured plants before. So plants that had been originally tissue cultured, that's how they were grown, and then they were in soil. And now I have the plant in soil growing like a normal plant. I've had that. And in terms of differences, I really haven't seen any differences between a plant that was grown via a cutting, except maybe that for a cutting, you might start with a big leaf, right? And then the new leaves start off small. They start to come in really small because it takes up a lot of energy to put out new leaves. But then eventually, I mean, the plant keeps growing, and those leaves can get matured, and new leaves, larger leaves, and so I guess maybe that is a big difference versus something tissue cultured, which I mean, it might come already with big leaves because it's just growing in that trajectory. So, um, but in terms of care, no difference. Some people argue that tissue cultured plants might be weaker. I don't know about that. I'm not, I don't, I can't say I've found like evidence of that. Um, but yeah, I just wanted to show you what this is because some folks might be saying like, well, what is tissue culture? So I thought, hey, I'll put something together to show you what is tissue culture. So let me share here. There we go. And let me put the thing here. Bum, bum, bum. All right. um, oh, let me go back here. So first off, welcome everyone. Um, so welcome and thank you for tuning in to the Urban Garden Learning Series, and where we offer classes, plant clinics, Q&As, open forums where we just sit here and talk about plants. So anything goes, anything goes. So I'm very grateful for everyone for hopping on today. So tissue culture. What in the world is it? And why are these plants in jars? And what in the world is that jelly at the bottom? So let me explain that a little bit. So here we go. So tissue culture. So this is when we are actually putting growing plants in a growth medium. All right. So we take cuttings from a plant. So, and it doesn't have to be like a stem. I'm talking a piece. We just need a genetic, like just a piece of genetic material. So this could be as small as a little slice of a leaf. It could be a leaf. It could be um, a small slice of the stem, right? So it doesn't have to be like the entire plant or anything like that. It can be a very, very small piece. And this is a sterile and very controlled environment. Um, and essentially, you're creating clones. So, why? Why would people want to do this? Well, one, it's again, it's a controlled environment, so it's a little bit more. It's something that you're not having to deal essentially with diseases, different types of pathogens necessarily if you're ensuring that the mother plant was healthy, right? So now, if the mother plant was not healthy, let's say she had like mosaic virus or something that you were unaware of, then it would be unsuccessful. Now, another one is growing a lot of plants at a larger scale with less space. So when you think, oh, I'm going to go into business and I'm going to, let's say, cultivate a bunch of pink princesses, and you get a bunch of mother plants, you have chop them all up, and now you have cuttings. And so now you have all this, and as they mature, you have to put them into soil. You're looking at like a warehouse, right? It's a lot of space. It's a lot. Some people cannot do that. That's just not at that capacity. They definitely yeah, that's not the route that they want to go. Um, Another thing too, is if you want to preserve a specific type of mutation. So like with pink princesses, maybe you have a pink princess that puts out so much pink, it's so gorgeous, and you want to make many more that look just like that, that have that the capacity to look like that. And so therefore you're making a bunch of little clones of it so that you can keep growing it out like that. So there's a couple benefits of doing the tissue culture. And you don't always necessarily need to have a lab setting to do it. You can technically do this at home. However, I'll talk about some things that you need to take into account. So one of the negative aspects, though, of lacking in that genetic diversity is that if you as a vector, so you touch a plant that is sick, let's say, you bring a pest, or you um, you end up introducing some type of fungus, to or bacteria. You have it on your hands. Maybe you're not wearing your gloves or something when you're handling these, or you're switching them out, to do like a subculture, and I'll talk about that. Um, and you're not completely sterile. One of the bad things about these being clones is that because it's basically you're creating a monoculture. So this is one of those problems, let's say, like when crops are all like clones, they're just the exact same genetically, and they're in close proximity to one another. So if a fungus, so for instance, like Cavendish bananas, right? So if there is a blight or something introduced to that section, it'll take out the entire thing. Um, there's just they're lacking genetic diversity, and so it's like the same plant being packed in a room, and it'll wipe everything out. So if you were to introduce some type of pathogen to your plants, you would basically expect that they would die, if they were susceptible to it, of course. So if they were very susceptible, then you could expect that a lot of your plants would be lost. So there were some really cool videos so on Canva that I was like, oh, this is awesome, to show you how people can do this in lab settings. So you can do this in maybe convert like a closet or a shed. You don't even need, to have like an actual huge lab. You can do this, if you can keep a room sterile. So now you might need some type of equipment. So some people do get like a hood, like an exhaust hood. There's like different chemicals, like sprays, sealed, like a creating kind of like a sealed room where you kind of section off a section of the room in like plastic. I mean, some people really go to the extreme to really make it a sterile environment so that they don't accidentally introduce anything that would just wipe out their plants. But you really could do this with a little space. If you just want to make a couple, you don't want to do like this where you have all these shelves of them. But so how do you even do this, right? So first off is, again, sterilization. So sterilization is key. You need to have the mother plant, the material from the mother plant. You're going to want to just make sure all of the tools that you're going to need, a scalpel, your agar, um, any petri dishes or jars, anything you're going to need. Wear gloves. Some people even go as far as to wear masks and visors to just really make sure they're not breathing anything. So, I mean, you can go to that extent, definitely. uh, but it's just, you really need a sterile surface. That's going to increase your success rate. If things are messy, if you're introducing like bacteria, it's just going to lead to rot. You're gonna lose a lot. And if you are investing, let's say if you invested a nice chunk of change on, let's say, you know, a uh, a chunk, right, of let's say Monstera albo or something. Um, you invested a lot on that piece, and then you're going to be, removing pieces to start in tissue culture. Um, you don't want to mess that up because you're going to end up losing out on those funds. Um, and then you select your plant material. So leaves can be used. Um, so some types of leaves can be used, but usually it is done with like a section of the stem. Um, and you want to make sure that the parent plant is healthy. The one that you're removing the genetic information, the genetic material from is a healthy mother plant. You don't want to mess around and put, something that is very sick um, into a bunch of these, because again, you're gonna lose them all. Um, then you're going to add that material into a rich agar medium that you're going to create. Now, there are some ones that are pre-prepared for you that are already made. It's like a jelly. It's already made. It has all the nutrients. It's been fine-tuned. Some folks, if you're gonna make your own, it could be a little bit more difficult because you're going to kind of have to fine tune it yourself. So you're going to have to see, well, what works, what doesn't. Is this enough nutrients? Is this enough agar? Um, maybe the consistency isn't where I want it to be. It can take a little bit to kind of figure that out. And in that time, I mean, you are losing a little bit of time. Um, and you might be spending a little bit more money because you would be buying these different materials independently and then kind of trying to create your own mix. If that is something you want to do, by all means. But if you're like, no, if your first thought is like, that's too much work, they do sell, like you can buy these tissue culture agars already pre-prepared. They seem to be a little bit pricey. I saw that it was for 500 grams was like $87. Um, but I mean, that looks like that's actually a large amount. So you would be able to produce quite a few plants from that. But you wouldn't want to use all of that on the first stage. You'd want to keep that agar because you're going to need to subculture. So this is what subculturing is. I'll tell you in a second, but just so that you see here. So if you're wondering, well, what are you doing with the agar and what are you doing with the plant? So you can, sometimes they're started off in petri dishes instead of jars. But basically you're putting like a gelatin. It's like a vitamin, nutrient infused uh, kind of gelatin that is being put in the petri dish. And this growth medium, it basically has everything that the little plant needs to grow. So it has the moisture and it has these nutrients. It has this is what's going to help kind of get it to the next stage. It will be here sometimes for several weeks. Sometimes it could be months. But it starts to develop, starts to grow. It starts to look like a little plant. And as it does this, so folks are kind of keeping an eye on it, really checking the growth rate. Certain types of plants might grow a little faster than others. So you want to keep that in mind. But eventually you're going to start to see that growth, and you're going to want to keep these as well in terms of like, well, where do I keep them? Out of direct sunlight. So they are usually in glass, and so This means that they can get very hot if they are in the sun. You don't want them, essentially, they cook in that medium. So you don't want them to be in direct sun. You also don't want them to be in a room that's going to exceed, like, it's going to get like 80, 85 and up. You want a room that's maybe like at most 80, and it stays pretty consistent. You just don't want them to get really hot. And you also don't want them to get really cold either. Um, but definitely don't want them to bake, because sometimes folks like, oh, they think they might be helping their tissue cultures by putting them like by the windowsill so they get the maximum light. And unfortunately, that's not the way to go. Unfortunately, yeah. So just be warned. Then subculturing. So what is subculturing? So when they start to develop, sometimes some folks, one piece of a little plant might start to make kind of like a few leaflets, a few little plants. Um, and sometimes someone might put several pieces of tissue in the agar. So to kind of, make the most of it, right? So it's not just one little piece, but a couple pieces. And so you need to make sure that if they are growing like that, you have to kind of separate them out. This is very similar to when folks are sowing seeds and they're starting them in seed trays, and maybe you're putting like 3 seeds. Um, uh, per little cube. And then as they grow, let's say you were successful and all 3 seeds grew, you can't leave them in that same little slot. You need to separate them out, and give them their own space to grow and develop. Because if not, more than likely there's going to be one winner, and the others, might lose out. So you want to grow them, so you're going to separate them out. And so this is a very similar concept, except you're not using like a seed tray, but rather this type of environment with the agar. Now you are replenishing the agar as well. So you're kind of re-upping, so it's fresh and they're getting all the nutrients they need. So you can't put it into the jar and then just keep it there forever. You have to kind of upgrade it as you go to ensure that it has what it needs to continue growing. Um, and then you can go ahead, and then it will get to that point where you can actually pot it up. So, but it's a long process. So a patience is very much needed in here. And so I just put here, like, they need that continuous supply, right? So you need to create like the perfect conditions. And so you want to collect these little plantlets and spread them out and keep that going. And so you might end up doing that a few times. And then they start to grow. So this is a Venus flytrap. Here's an example. I actually have seen them sold in that mix, and they're sold just like that for folks to grow and keep them like that for a little bit. But they will need to get that changed out eventually. So it's not very long lived. Um, and then eventually they get really big, and it's time to put them into soil. And so now when you're transplanting them, it's kind of the opposite of when you're putting, so like some folks, when they're trying to save, let's say, a plant from root rot, or they're trying to transfer a plant that's currently living in soil into water, like into a hydroponic type of thing. And you always want to make sure that every speck of soil is off those roots before you put them in that water so it doesn't rot. And this is quite the opposite. You want to make sure that all the agar, so all of that gelatin, is completely clear of the roots. You can't have any of that residue left. Make sure it's completely clean, and then pot them up. And of course, with all transplants, we know this even when it's a cutting that's in water that gets put into soil, there is an acclimation period. There is such thing as transplant shock. So some plants don't survive this step. It's just kind of too much of a big change. Some plants might start to have yellow leaves. but then they'll start to push out new growth, and you're on the right track. Um, so just keep that in mind. Every time you transplant a plant, there is a margin of error. There's a margin of, something could go wrong. But yeah, once they're big enough, you can absolutely put them into soil, and this is how a lot of plants are made for our consumption in like the houseplant hobby. So this isn't new. I think it's become a little bit more accessible to the public, and I think that's why. Um, and I'm going to mention some drama as well, but uh, so it's I think it's just becoming a little bit more accessible that some hobbyists are going as far as to do this in their own homes. It's not something that is no longer stuck within like a huge nursery and that has like a lab at their disposal. This is something that's a little bit more accessible. And I think people like to innovate, they like to experiment. And so this is something that, folks want to do and explore. So and a lot of our plants are being made by tissue culture already. And most people don't know. So um now but why again? Like why? And yes, the initial investment in getting some of the supplies, of course, might be a little bit higher, but in the long run, you might actually end up saving a lot of money, or you're able to recoup your funds if you're able to generate a lot of plants that you would be able to sell, for instance. You can also, it's, rare plants. Some of these plants, it's really hard to start them from seed. Some of these plants, they have mutations that isn't something you can start from seed. You have to propagate them. And let's say you have limited space. It's not something that you can have a whole nursery of these types of plants. It's a much, you can do this at a smaller scale, but still generate a nice amount of plants. And then again, it's just a great excuse to experiment. So this is something that Brian and I really want to do, like from start to finish, um, one day. Uh, but yeah, I know he wants to try to figure out how to do it sooner. But I'm like, well, where we have our place isn't huge, so I'm like, I don't know where we could carve out a corner that we would then just make sterile. So I don't know. But yeah, this is something we want to try. For now, we're just getting the plants what that are already in the agar, already close to being to a point where they will be able to get repotted. So we're kind of getting them in that last stage. So I will try to document that. Hopefully, I mean, it's our first time messing with these, so we're keeping our fingers crossed that we can keep them happy and we don't lose them. I'll show you we got two plants, but it's much more cost effective. And I'm going to show you what a snowdrift looks like versus what I got. But last thing, Monstera drama. So I'm not sure if folks are aware of the whole Costa Farms drama that happened with tissue culture. So just giving you a little slice of houseplant hobbyist history here. So there had been, I mean, uh, the Monstera albos and the Thai constellation Monsteras. This is something that's at one point, now it's a little bit more available. Now they're a little bit more available, but right before COVID, I mean, these were everyone wanted one. This was on everybody's wish list. They were going for hundreds of dollars. It was pretty ridiculous. And folks really just wanted them. But again, these, for instance, the Thai constellations were only made in a lab. So they didn't exist. It wasn't something you could start from seed. You had to either have a plant and then you can propagate it by chopping it up, like in cuttings and making more plants, um, or getting, tissue culture, but that's how you could get them. So this wasn't something you could just like find or make, yourself. Um, and so what ended up happening is Costa Farms there started to be rumors that they were working on basically making these available to people via, in big box stores. So Costa Farms, if you are familiar with them, sometimes when you buy plants from like Home Depot or Lowe's or at your local supermarket, if you're here in the US, you might see it say Costa Farms. And so it's just where these plants are being grown. It's the main nursery. And so there was all these kind of rumors going around, and somebody, a YouTuber, had spoken to someone that works there, and I believe in like 2019, and they said that yes, that this was something that was in development. So it was like a lot of people getting excited, and people would be asking like, is this, what's the word? Do we know anything? When are they going to be available? And so it started to really build up hype. It was a lot of hype. So so many people were talking about this, and everybody couldn't wait because folks thought they were going to get like some like cheaper plants, because the rumors were saying that the plants, we would be getting large plants, like big mother plants, for maybe about 100, 150. So that's much more acceptable than, certain mother plants. I mean, we're going for like $1,000. So it was accessible. It was much more accessible than these other options, right? So folks were being told, just be patient, it's going to get done. And so what ended up happening though is tissue culture is slow. It's a slow process. And the from the different threads that I've read about this whole situation, it was Costa Farms had invested a very large amount of money, their initial investment to kind of get this project started. And then it was taking a lot longer um, than they thought. And then they supposedly started losing a lot of those plants, of the plants that were being tissue cultured. Um, and so it ended up being where all this hype and an expectation had built up, and it looked like they actually weren't going to be able to meet their goal, and they weren't going to be able to meet the demand, and they weren't going to be able to do what they initially thought they were going to be able to do. So it just kind of went really badly. And so what they ended up doing is they basically kind of put out that you can buy, I believe they were selling them like via Costa Farms directly and in Walmart, on the Walmart like online. And all of a sudden, they dropped these Thai constellations, but for $600. And I mean, this is a ginormous plant. These were huge plants. So some folks felt that it was justified, like, well, $600, but I get a giant plant. It's not like a little thing. Um, and people, they sold out. They sold out so fast. Um, but it ended up kind of being a big letdown to folks, because the whole idea was that folks were going to be able to, go into stores and buy smaller plants, but at a cheaper cost, because there was going to be they were basically going to kind of bring up the supply, and so therefore the cost was going to be driven down, and that's not what ended up happening. Now since that whole fiasco, this was happening like 2020 2021, but then since then there actually has been the cost has been driven down. And so now in 2023, we're actually seeing them being more plentiful. And I've been seeing them in more shops. And there's a Union Square green market here, and at the little booths where they sell plants, I've been seeing like Monstera albos are being sold, and ties. But there's still, I mean, it's still like a small one for like 150 and a larger one for like 300. But Monstera albos, I've been seeing they have like much more larger like white sections. They don't have like that splash like the Thai does, but I've been seeing them like for 85, $90. Again, we're still pretty expensive, but we are seeing that the price is going down. So maybe by like 2025 where it's gonna maybe we can get, a tie for like, I don't know, 75, $80 for a nice size. So it's a slow process. And so it was very sad that, it got built up. But I appreciate that, Costas was trying to it kind of, you know, explain like what happened. And I think that, yeah, you should be transparent. Like, yeah, the plan didn't work. It didn't go the way we wanted it to. Um, but yeah, this was drama, drama, drama. This was being discussed in all the plant forums and on YouTube. So this was a big thing. So just sharing that little bit of plant pop culture for you there. Um, but yeah, next week, open forum. We can just talk about anything. So feel free if you want to, plan to share anything next week, let me know. I'm always happy, take the floor and share anything you'd like to share. This is the QR code for the plant swap connection. So folks feel free to enter in there if you want to enter your details, what kind of plants you want to share, what cuttings, things like that, and see if you can connect with folks that will be able to ship with you, like ship and share with you. So definitely check that out. And yeah, these classes are free. Every little bit helps, definitely. So if you are interested in getting me a matcha or helping me buy a new plant, by all means, sharing my Venmo there. And again, for those that have sent over, I truly, truly, truly appreciate it. Seriously. I like to keep these classes free, of course, and so that's the plan. My houseplant class, keeping it free, so no worries. And I am also on Patreon. So there has been a little bit of a lag. I was hoping to get some stuff done in August, but August ended up being really, really, really busy for me. But I went to the garden over the weekend as well, to the New York Botanical Garden, and we actually shot video. So there's going to be some videos that I'm going to be sharing on TikTok, um, on Instagram, and there's going to be YouTube videos. So I'm going to be starting my tours. And yeah, so then I'll be offering more things on Patreon. So keep an eye out on that. I get like backstage access kind of thing, like behind the scenes access at NYBG now. So I'm able to take tours of the greenhouses that are not open to the public. Um, and I have footage of a tour I got of the library. So the rare books section of the NYBG library. And yeah, so I'm going to be sharing those videos. So Brian is going to be helping me edit. So I'm really excited to really kind of be pushing this. I think I'm always going like, oh, but I don't want to, I think it's unfortunately for me, it's like I get very wrapped up in like, well, it's not perfect. It's not, and then I end up not putting it out. Um, and so I have like a graveyard of footage. And Brian was like, let's just do it. So we're going to be starting to put out videos regularly. And yeah, so keep an eye out for that. I'm excited. I'm pushing. We're pushing. We're doing it. Also, there is this Amazon shopping list. These are not like affiliate links or anything. This is just a list of different types of supplies that I've purchased myself or that have been recommended by other students. And so you can access that and just check that out. So the products that are in there, have been tried and true. And so if they don't work well, they're not on the list. So no worries. So that's in there. And then lastly, yeah, so reach out at info@urbangarden.eco. That's our website, urbangarden.eco. And then on Instagram too. So I haven't been posting very much like in the last month and a half. But now with all this new content and stuff, I'll start that up again. Gosh, guys, I've been super swamped. I've been so swamped. Um, with the Herbalists Without Borders, we are launching a new website in a few weeks. And we are also doing like a whole new system that's going to help me automate emails and things like that. So I'm thinking that's going to take a lot off my plate and then I can focus on the fun stuff. So right now I started that position at Herbalists Without Borders as the executive director last October. So it's been a learning curve of a year and trying to figure out new systems and how things work. What does a year of operations look like? And it's just a lot of office admin. So this is the aspect that I like. I like the creative side. I like connecting with students and teaching and making content and sharing like educational resources and things. So it's been hard to kind of take a step back from that and then focus on like office work. So it's been really difficult for me because that's taken up a lot of my time. So I'm really hoping that by putting these new um, tools in place, that's gonna help me go back to focusing on what I want to focus on, which is this. So, yeah, that's what I'm hoping to do. Um, yeah. Oh, Jerry. Oh, here we go. Oh, there we go. I didn't realize that oh, I'm so sorry if you couldn't hear. Oh yeah, Holly, Comfrey. Yes. Comfrey is amazing. Um so Comfrey also known as knitbone, I think is another common name. And so comfrey, it will grow readily. So if you once you plant it, it will keep coming back if it's in a good spot. Um, it grows in like these clusters, pretty large leaves. I would recommend not necessarily starting them from seed. You can, but if you want to kind of increase your the potential for success, I would recommend trying to see if you can find on eBay or oh yeah, totally will grow in Chicago. It grows here in New York City. So absolutely will grow it. It gets cold, of course. I know it gets cold in Chicago and but you can dig out those roots. And you can kind of bring them indoors. Um, or pot them up and bring them indoors. You could totally do that so that they don't completely freeze. Um, but I mean, they grow here in the gardens and everything, but you can buy those roots. So you can buy comfrey roots and then you can plant them up and it kind of like speeds up the whole process because they're already roots. And so you can plant them up and yeah, you can. Oh yeah, and Linda Saint grows just fine in Buffalo. So and they get a lot of snow. Like, I'm wondering what's going to happen this year. So last year here in New York City, I think we got like two flurries of snow, but we never got like snow, where we had to like put on our snow boots and I we never shoveled. Last winter, Brian and I never had to shovel the snow. Um, like it was like dustings and then it would be like super thin and then it would be melted like by the next morning. It wasn't like that. So I'm really wondering what's going to happen because I know that my colleagues in Wisconsin was saying that she's trying to put a bunch of she has a huge farm and so she's been trying to rapidly process all these like saving seeds and herbs and she's trying to dry things because next week, or I guess this week she said it was supposed to drop down to like the 40s. Um, and I thought that was so fast. I don't know if that's normal for Wisconsin. I'm like, it's September. But apparently it's gonna get really cold, and so she's trying to rapidly um push through and try to, get as much harvested and processed. So because she's drying herbs, she's saving seeds, uh, so trying to get that all like done before, she might lose a lot of things, because then the cold will damage the plants, and then they're not something you would use, right? If you're harvesting the aerial parts of the plant, like the flowers or the leaves. Um so I'm wondering, I'm like, if it's happening there, and let's say that that's not normal, is it going to get really cold here? So, because it's September and it is hot. It is hot here in New York City. So, oh, and Darlene says that they didn't get snow either in Baltimore. Yeah. Um, oh yeah, and we had hardly any until our weird huge storm in December. Oh, in Buffalo, yeah, then hardly any. Yeah, yeah, Buffalo got hit by some snow, but like the city, we were just like, where's the snow? Um, yeah, not a real big snow. So I'm wondering how this winter is gonna be. Um, it's let's see. Um, oh, so I do want to actually show you these tissue cultures. So this is the snowdrift. So I'll do a little close up here. It is so cute and absolutely beautiful snowdrift. And it was $10. $10 for this philodendron snowdrift. Um, I'm trying to see where did I put my, oh, I think is it, here we go. The philodendron. Yeah. And so just so I can show you what, oh, my voice is dying. Let me see here. Um, here we go. Uh, so gorgeous, so beautiful. This has been on my um, wish list for a little while. I had done a philodendron class, gosh, a while ago, and this was on my wish list. I didn't know about them until I was checking like what different varieties can I share as examples, and I was like, what is this? This is gorgeous, and I really want it. Um, so to think, I got this little guy for $10. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. Um, but it's super cool to just see like the accessibility of some of these plants. And then the other plant that we got, so this was mine. So this is what I chose. So Brian also picked one for himself, but he picked a slightly larger one, and his was $30. And it is a Thai constellation. And it's in these baggies instead of a tube, but it has this all white leaf. It's really cute, super cute. Um, but yeah, he got this little one. You can see the roots better in this one. So let me show you the roots there. Here we go. The shine of the plastic. But the roots have spread out there. And yeah, he's super excited. Um, and we'll see how that goes. Um, and this one will be ready to be transplanted into soil relatively soon. So we were told to kind of let maybe get a little bit bigger, and then we can cut the bag open. We would clean all that agar off, so all of that like jelly. It's literally like jelly. Um, clean all that off, and then proceed to um, put it into soil. Uh, so we'll see how that goes. I've never, yeah, I don't think I've ever had philodendron that's this tiny, or yeah. Um, so we'll see how that goes. But Linda, yeah, so we don't have to replenish their agar. Like, they're almost ready to be planted up. So they're basically in their last stage. So before this, previous to this, yes, the person that was growing them would have to replenish the agar, and they probably started on like a little bottle or like a petri dish, and then they slowly upgraded them into these tubes. Um, and they did indeed have to, and so that process of like replenishing, and sometimes they might grow more plants, so there might be more plantlets, so you separate them out. So yeah, and that's called subculturing. So the initial putting it into the agar is called culturing, and then you subculture, which kind of like you might kind of breaking them out a little bit more, and also replenish the agar, so that you're making sure they have a nice steady amount of nutrients and moisture. Um, and I mean, it has to be like, we're not opening them or anything. So but yeah, it has to be super difficult to keep these completely sterile, which is why I'm like, while I do want to try this one day from start to finish, uh I feel like I was telling Brian, because we want to eventually have like land and everything, and I said, well, what if we were to have like a shed that we convert kind of like a lab? It's not like a huge lab, but it would just be like, that would be the sterile room, and we would have, what we need to make it completely sterile, and we could get like the suits and everything to make sure we don't introduce anything, and we can just kind of do it the proper way, because he's very excited and he wants to try to do it in our apartment. And I'm just like, I don't know. Do we convert a closet? Like, I don't know. So I think, yeah, I think we should wait maybe till we have the place. And yeah, we have been talking about also getting land upstate. So I don't know. Uh, that was something we were discussing, and that would be really cool, to be able to do that, and then have, because then it's, because we have land in Costa Rica, but that's of course much, it's more difficult to have like folks come, if they're unable to travel that far. So to do stuff here in New York, and then maybe have like you know if we get a nice amount of land, and then have people come and stay and stuff. So I'd love to do that. I'd love to do like, um, week-long events, like classes, and so people can come and stay, and then we can go out and do stuff. So yeah. And yes, Linda, this process may be the way of our future food. Oh yes. Um, oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I think that as the agriculture, uh, I know there's been great strides to really try to, folks are like really embrace, like trying to say like, we were doing agriculture wrong, we're depleting the nutrients, so it wasn't being cycled, and so there's been strides in fixing that, like rotating and stuff, but that seems to be more so like small scale farms, like in on like cover cropping and stuff, and um but some of these like bigger farms, and especially when they're doing it in other areas, like, you might not know this, but like in the Amazon, area is cleared off for like things like soybeans, and it's just fields of soybeans growing in these soils that weren't meant to grow soybeans. hurricanes. It's like things like that. And with climate change, yes, definitely, Linda, with climate change. And um I just feel like we're exhausting things. And it's and the large scale of this is it's very scary. And so yeah, I totally would see this kind of becoming a thing where maybe, you know, yeah, more like and I mean a lot of these varieties and stuff, like, so like tissue culture isn't a new thing, as I mentioned. It's been around for a little bit. Um and there have been like varieties of plants and crops, um not only house plants, but crops have been grown this way to make like the clones to kind of start off. uh and so yeah, it might become something that more people will come to know. And yeah, it might be a way. I mean, I do like the aspect of it that you can actually be preserving um a plant's genetic legacy, right? There could be some, just, yeah, a plant that would otherwise be lost, and then having, continuing to grow it, and having it done that way to ensure that you can keep it. But then the problem is that you're just creating clones, though. So um so yeah, it's like, yes, you're keeping it going, but at the same time, uh yeah, it can be catastrophic, right? If something gets introduced that takes them out, it will take all of them out. But yeah, I don't know. I thought this was really cool though. So I wanted to. I know it kind of can be like a bummer thinking about these things. Um, but it was a cool, like, planty science thing. And so I hope that the bigger takeaway is, ooh, that's interesting. But yeah, it is a bummer when you really start thinking about how things are going. Yeah. Um, I mean, I think I had mentioned it a couple weeks ago. There was all over the news was um, with it's getting so hot in areas that even like saguaro cacti are just like burning. Um, so it's not going well. Holly, yes, of course. The key is definitely the gel medium. Absolutely. Oh, absolutely. That's a necessary step. So you can't do it without that. Um, and in case, Linda, if you miss that part, you can purchase the mix, the agar, so like that gelatin. You can purchase it ready made, so it's already pre-mixed, has what it needs, in the right proportions, um, and you can use it ready to go. Some people make their own, so they get the agar, they get the nutrients, and it's kind of that adds like another extra layer of experimentation, because then you have to see if you can play around, and then you kind of have to fine tune it yourself. While one that's already ready made, tried and true, good to go, so you can do it that way. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's something you can do technically. Technically, you can do at home. Yeah. Miriam, can the plants only then be reproduced this way using them as mother plants? Um, so in the future, no, you could, if you actually grow them out and they mature, they're larger plants. You could then cut them and actually do it like in cuttings, like water propagations or things like that. Um, so you can reproduce tissue culture plants by cutting as well. So yeah, you can do that. Um, and I mean, I do believe that if they were allowed to like mature, just like any other tie, they would probably, so I'm trying to think. I don't know if ties. I think ties go into flower. I mean, they're a monstera. I would assume that they could flower, but now that I think of it, I've never seen a monstera Thai flower. I know that monstera Thai constellations can are only made like through tissue culture and cuttings. So, but now I'm wondering if they flower and if you were to try to cross them with, let's say, a regular Monstera deliciosa, I'm curious as to, I mean, because sometimes variegation isn't something that, is passed necessarily through seed. Um, like some of these mutations, they don't pass through seed. So now I'm wondering if Thai constellations flower. I would assume that they do. I'm gonna assume that they do. I'm gonna look that up. But yes, but you can cut them. You can absolutely cut them to make more plants. But again, those will be clones. So that you're gonna keep yeah, like hybrids, yeah, to make hybrids. That'd be cool. But yeah, with the Monstera type constellations, you can keep just chopping them and spreading them, and that's how they are usually done now by hobbyists and in some nurseries. Once they get the mother plants, they chop them and they have them that way. But originally, that's really how they're being made is tissue culture. So um, yeah, so here's to plant science. Um, no, Holly. So with that's the beauty of the Monstera Thai constellations. They don't revert. So Monstera albos can revert. So they do have that potential to revert on you. So they will start putting out green growth with maybe only a couple splashes of white until they just start putting out green leaves. So some people, what they do is they chop that section that's growing green and they remove that from the plant to try to preserve the mutation in the remaining sections. And then they hope that the next part that grows still has that mutation. So sometimes folks do that, but that's with Monstera albo. So that's an example of unstable variegation where it can revert back. Like, so you're taking a gamble every time. Brian actually won a Monstera albo at an auction, and he won it, and it had very little white, so they were saying it was like becoming reverted. Um, but Brian really liked it. He didn't expect to win, and he ended up winning it. And it started pushing out actually a lot of growth with white, and so he's very happy with that. So it can go either way. It can go either way. With um, but with the Thai constellation, the Monstera Thai constellation, that is stable variegation. So you can cut them, you can make many more of them, they can keep growing, and there's always white. So there's always white on the leaf. They have it looks like a splash. Um, hold on, because I have one on my desk. Hold on, let me try to not tip it over. There we go. It's much splashier. So as you can see, it's like splash. It looks like it got covered in like you took paint and you just kind of went like that to it. And so it always has this. It might have bigger chunks of white, so it might have like one whole white section of the leaf, or like a pocket. Like here, I mean, here's some nice little things here, bigger splashes of white, but there's always splashes. So no matter what, there's always splashes on Thai constellations, which is why, oh, no worries, like Holly, that's totally fine. Um, but yeah, they will always have splashes. So they might not get like a big chunk here of white on the leaf, but they will get these little white streaks. And so that's why they're a little bit more expensive. And people really want them because it's like, yeah. Now with albos, they tend to get more white, like bigger chunks of white. So that's what makes them really desirable, but you are taking a risk every time you make an investment in them. And Brian is obsessed with variegation, and so Brian has ties, he has elbows, um, and but it's a gamble. It's a gamble with the elbows. Um, yeah, yeah, Holly, definitely. I'll put, let me spotlight if you want to show it. Let me know if you want to show it. If you just want to send a picture, let me know. Um, but yeah, I want to see it, definitely. Oh, that's awesome. And Linda says those little splashes look like the Jingle Bells poinsettia. Yes, yes. So it's really beautiful. It has like this really, really gorgeous splash to it. Absolutely beautiful. Oh, here we go. Hold on, let me spotlight. Here we go. And what is this? Hold on. Oop, here we go. Oh no.
I don't know what happened to it. It's just dying. Maybe that got too much water. I didn't water it this time.
Wait, is that the Adansonii?
I thought it was a Monstera. I can't see.
Oh,
It
oh,
used to have
uh-huh.
little holes in it, and it was trying to grow, and then it just not doing anything now.
Yeah,
I don't
that looks
know.
like a Monstera Adansonii. I mean, you could, I would think probably the roots. Yeah. You could chop and do like water propagations if you wanted to try that. They're pretty good to grow in water. Like
Oh, okay.
so
Okay.
like I have like I did that with my that's what happened to my Monstera Peru.
Okay.
It had some really nice leaves, and then they were not doing well. Um, and then it just became a long vine, and so I chopped it up, and this is one of them. Um,
Oh, okay.
and it's really been happy. I just tucked it right here, and so this was the first leaf it gave me, and then this is the newest leaf that just came out. Look how I love how shiny it is. Um, but yeah, this was the original piece. So you could see this is what it looked like. And then the new leaf came out, and then now the second leaf came out. Um, and this is oh, you can see the roots here.
I
So
could just chop this up and put it in some water. Okay,
oh,
then
absolutely. Yeah.
I will. I do
So
that.
and I like these. These are like when you go to hotels and you get the little shampoos and the conditioners and stuff.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
when they come like that and I can see that I can take off the label, I always end up throwing them in the suitcase because I was like, oh, this is a great for propagation. So yeah, so try that out. You can chop it and like start over.
Is
Um
that leca in there?
so this is it's called ceramsite. So it's something that I'm experimenting with.
Okay.
So there is a piece of leca in there. Um
Yeah.
So I originally had some pieces of leca, and then I was like, I actually want to try ceramsite. So I dumped some ceramsite into here. So these are little ceramic balls. So they're not as porous as leca,
Mm.
but they're just smaller. It gives something for the plant roots to grab onto. So so
Okay.
far it's been good, but I've tried not to like put it too dense. So like the plant roots, the roots still have space, um, but they're lightweight, and it looks like the plant is liking it so far. So I have some plants in ceramsite. I have um, a uh, I have a Scindapsus in ceramsite, and I have a um, I think a Philodendron Brazil and and I have an aloe, not an aloe, a spider plant. I have a spider plant in ceramsite that looks very happy. So
I can't grow spider plants. But I
No,
just found a place to get leca, so I'll probably get some.
try. And the spider plant that I'm growing, it's in water, so it's a cutting. So if you're able to get, sometimes folks are giving away baby spider plants, and they
Right.
start to have a little bit of roots. You can put them in water, and they'll root for you, and you can keep them in water. And so you could try that. So uh, definitely.
I will probably keep it in water, but I'm getting kind of got a couple of ferns and they didn't live, and then I had spider plants when I was in California, it never lived. So I think I'm gonna just hold off on them for get something that's gonna at least try to live. So yeah, it's kind
Yeah.
of hard when you set something up and then all of a sudden it's gone. um, anyway, next time I know you gotta go, so next time I'll show you the palm, the date palm. It keeps growing those little
Things,
things.
the weird things. Yeah.
So okay,
No,
that's
totally. But
thank
like
you for.
oh yeah, no, no, you're very welcome. But I just wanted to say, like, I feel you. Like, I just lost, like on Friday, I just lost a plant that I've had for almost 4 years, and I was so upset because it was just so unexpected. So I had a beautiful carry eye. Do you guys remember my Hoya carry eye? Gorgeous. I've had that. I had it in the bedroom for a while, then I had it in the kitchen, and then the last like 2.5 years I've had it um up here, and it's been growing great. And it just the bottom leaf started turning yellow, which is normal. It was an old leaf, so I said sure. And then another leaf, and I was like, oh no. And then I noticed that the bottom was getting very soft, so that's root rot. So I was like, oh gosh. So I cut it, and I thought, well, I can save the top vine. And no, it looks like it had gotten infected with like some type of bacteria. So the inner part of the core of the pith, so like the center of the vine was like dark. It was already far gone, and I lost the whole thing, and that hurt me. Like, that really hurt because I've had that for a really long time, and I really love that plant. And so it sucks. Like, you get super invested in them, and they're growing really prettily, and then you get like in that rhythm where, oh, it's Saturday, let's say, you got to water your plant, and you take care of it, and then one day all of a sudden it's yeah, it's gone the other direction. And so it's seriously, it's heartbreaking. So I just wanted, I'm like, I know. It really sucks. Oh no, Holly, I
Oh,
think, oh, there you go.
I'm sorry. I had bought about 6 humidifiers. Now they're just
Oh, yeah. No, yeah, and then you invest like a bunch, and then yeah, no, I completely, yeah. I have a bunch of the plants because we had gotten hit by thrips. And so I have a bunch of here even on my desk, a predatory mite. I've been trying to spread them as much around as I can to get the last bits of the infestation. Because oh my gosh, it's so frustrating. I lost so many plants, like we have a cabinet in the kitchen. Um, yeah, and I lost like everything in there. There's probably like one plant in there. And so it's like just makes you want to like scream. Yeah, because like in the and yeah, all the investment in there, the lights and then the fans and then the humidifiers, and so very disheartening. Um, and so I mean, Brian was saying he wants to see if we can start to breed our own predatory mites, and then I mean that would be great because then we would have a consistent supply, so we can keep them on the plants kind of year round. And because again, I've said this before, I would rather get mealy bugs. Like, give me mealy bugs. I would rather have mealy bugs on my plants than thrips. Spider mites are pretty annoying. I don't necessarily want them, but I also feel like plants can bounce back. But thrips, it's very difficult. It's very, very difficult. It's very heartbreaking. Like so I we had done the count months ago where we had like 311 plants. We're definitely under 300 now. So we're maybe it's like 270, 280. It's still a lot, but we lost a lot of beautiful plants that we very much loved. Um, and a lot, it's a lot of money. So a loss of investment too. So it's unfortunately an aspect of the hobby, but it's still it doesn't make it hurt any it doesn't make it hurt any less. But we've definitely also like pulled back. We haven't been getting like super expensive plants until we have this like in control and stuff and yeah, and I've been just sticking more also to my succulents. You know, they're great, but aeroids like philodendrons and monstera and scindapsus, you know, they can be a little troublesome, and so it's you're taking a risk, but yeah, but thank you everyone for tuning in. Um, and I hope that I was able to introduce something cool to you as um, tissue culture. And yeah, I hope that that was interesting and informative. Thank you seriously so much for tuning in. It seriously always means a lot. And yeah, please stay safe. Enjoy the rest of your Monday and the rest of your week. Please stay safe out there. Um, yeah, and I'll see you next week, I hope. Have a great one, everyone. Bye for now.